So I'm out here in the garden, and um, I was thinking about this movie I saw yesterday, like almost like a little kids movie. I was watching Shazam on Netflix, and uh, so it was all right. I think it could have been a lot better, like the acting and whatnot. But I just wanted to find something to watch that wouldn't be difficult to watch. And there was towards the end, Megan Good was in it, and I've always loved Megan Good, and you know, she was essentially playing a little girl in a big woman's body because that's the whole concept of Shazam. It's like these kids who get powers, but when they transform, they turn into adults. But throughout the movie, I found it a bit odd that for a movie that's geared towards children, that involves children being the main characters, there were so many adult references. I mean, like, so not even references. Like, they literally went into a strip club. They were drinking beers. They were cussing. Like, it was such an adult movie that was geared towards kids. And while I'm watching it, of course, when you're watching something, you're rationalizing it in your mind, like, oh, it's not that bad, oh, it's okay, or whatever. But then in reflecting on it, I was like, man, that's actually kind of weird. Like, it's like really, really weird, you know. And then towards the end, of course, this one of the little girls is black, and she gets to turn into a superhero, and that superhero is played by Megan Good. And Megan Good had the most lines out of any of the other characters. There's like six other kids who turn into superheroes, but when they all six transform, Megan Good had the most lines. And I thought that was cool because I love Megan Good. Like, I want to see Megan Good on screen, you know? But then I realized that, she wasn't playing like a woman her age. She was playing a child in her body. So her mannerisms were very like childlike, maybe you have to like watch it to see, but it's just very childlike, almost like the dumb blonde trope, you know. Of course, because you're a kid, so that's kind of normal. But in every line, she was just so like goofy and fanatic and childlike. And it wasn't until this morning that I'm like wondering, like, man, why did she have the most screen time out of everybody else? And why in her screen time did she have to play like dumb and stupid and like childish, although you're seeing a grown black woman on screen, you know? And it made me reflect on this movie I watched like a few days prior, The Green Mile on Netflix, which I saw when I was younger, but I rewatched it. And it's this big, huge black guy. I think his name is Michael something. One of the biggest black guys to have ever been on the screen. Like, you could hardly, but the character that they had him play, surrounded by these white prison guards and white prisoners, the one black guy who was the biggest, strongest out of all of them, he plays the guy who is incoherent, can hardly speak English, and very docile. On top of that, his entire character, I'm telling you, like, just look up Green Mile and you'll see him. It's huge black guy in like the tightest shirt. Like, bro, I know y'all could have found an extra large or something. He's in the tightest shirt, you know? And the same guy played in a movie, Pulp Fiction, that I forgot the scene until my friend reminded me of it yesterday. But in that movie, he was being raped by a white guy. And I remember that image in my head. I saw it as a kid, and I can't remember how I saw it. I think maybe my big brother was watching the movie, and like I saw the scene or something. But I always remember that scene. I could never re-find the movie, but I always remember that scene of this huge black guy being literally bent over and raped by a white guy. It's always been in my head, and I can't quite describe like how seeing that made me feel. I think when I was younger, I was very young when I saw it. It made me feel confused. It made me feel like a couple different things all at once, attraction, like towards like sexuality in general, because it's a weird scenario. And I feel like subconsciously it also put a perception in my mind of myself, because I'm looking at essentially the only black guy on screen, which of course, once we see a black person on screen, we're going to immediately subconsciously identify with them and root for them. And seeing the one person that you identify with on screen, and even more like a really big, like strong kind of that you look up to as a kid, almost like a superhero type figure, being bent over and broken down like that. Like, I feel like that had effects on me that I'm still trying to figure out, because that scene has always remained in my head. I could not remember the movie for the longest time, but I always remember that scene. And so when I saw him in Green Mile, initially, really, I watched it because I wanted to see if this was the movie that I saw all these years ago. It wasn't. But even still, seeing the character that was played, he was supposed to be playing like a good trope. He was essentially like an angel, who could like take people's pain, you know? And so he's going around, he's healing all these people. But even those were like really weird, because one of the white guys had like a STD or something. And in order to heal him, the black guy grabbed his junk and held it to take in to heal him. I'm like, bro, he could have touched his shoulder or something. Why do you have to like grab his junk? But I say all this to say, like, as I'm watching these movies and I'm really thinking on it, it's really making me realize and really want to be more conscious about how we're represented on screen. How are we represented in media? Because I think for so long, you know, of course, there were times when we didn't have any representation in media. We didn't have any representation anywhere, you know? And so we fought for that. We begged for that. We asked for that. And now in 2021, we're getting a lot of representation in media. We're seeing a lot of black people on TV, on shows, on Netflix, and all these things. But as I'm rewatching these movies, and I think I'm going to be keeping an eye out as I continue to watch more, I'm considering, what role are we allowed to play? Like really looking at it. Although we're getting these roles, what roles are we really being allowed to play? You know? Because I seen this Cat Williams interview the other day where he was talking about how, you know, Denzel Washington did this amazing scene in Glory. You know, a lot of Denzel Washington movies are like really good, really, you know, uplifting, sometimes traumatic, I won't lie. But a lot of times they're really like, you know, good movies. And he's a phenomenal actor. But he didn't get an Oscar until he played that crooked cop in Training Day. He got a record for that. He got an Oscar. He got accolades for that performance. So you see what I mean? It's like, man, like, we're finally getting representation, but are we really? Like, is it really worth it? Like, whenever I watch shows and there's a gay black friend, 9 times out of 10, that gay black friend is black. Or the feminized, the effeminate black friend is, or the effeminate friend is black. Or if the effeminate friend is white, or if the gay friend is white, he is like, he's a caricature of like black women, of black cultures, so to speak, you know? And so all these things just have me thinking, like, man, like, it's so wild. It's so wild that we think we're getting ahead. We think we're making progress, but it's still on the terms of like representing to us like that we're not who we are, you know? Like, we don't really see a lot of strong, healthy black movies. When you see a movie that's really centered on a black family, it's usually rooted in trauma. It's usually a guy trying to make it out the hood to play basketball. It's usually a broken family. The husband's cheating. The wife is getting beat. Like, it's hardly ever something like healthy. It's a prison movie, you know? It's a prison film. A guy's trying to make it out of prison, you know, like, just all these things, bro. Or it's a comedy making fun of us, how much we eat, how we talk, how we cuss, how we this, how we that, you know? Like, just can't get around it, bro. And I think as adults, it's easy to like rationalize a lot of these things, right? It's easy to just be like, okay, like, I'm okay, I'm fine, it's whatever, or not even think about it in that way. And I think that's because, bro, like, we done been traumatized for so many years, we've normalized our trauma. Like, we don't even see this trauma anymore because we've hardened ourselves around it. We've been desensitized to it. But when I think about me as a kid, when I saw that Pulp Fiction scene and how that image has been burned into my memory since I was a kid, it's never left my mind. It's there. Even now, it's there. I remember exactly what that scene looked like. I think about how this is affecting our kids. Because remember, the original movie I mentioned, Shazam, that's geared towards children. So we might not see it as young adults or as adults, but how is that little kid feeling? How is that little black girl feeling when she watches TV and she sees this little girl on TV and she identifies it with that little girl, and then she sees a black woman on TV and she identifies with that black woman, but everything that black woman does is childish. It's fanatical. It's dumb. That's who she's seeing herself as. That's how she's seeing herself represented in the future. How does that affect a child's psychology? I don't think we're the targets for a lot of these things. We are, like, if you're black, you're a target for a lot of things. But I think that there is a deliberate attack on our children, on the way our children think, on the way our children feel about themselves, on the way our children perceive the world, on the way our children see themselves, see our people, on what our children identify with. I think there's an onslaught on that. And it sucks because so many of us as adults, again, have already been traumatized for so long that we've hardened ourselves around it. We've been desensitized to it. So we'll let our kids watch things because we don't feel like it affects us, so it doesn't affect them. Like I can see Megan Good play a child on TV and just be like, it's a movie, without having a second thought about what that's making my child think, you know? So, I don't know. It was just something I was thinking about while I was out here in the garden. And I guess I just wanted to share these thoughts out loud.